There is so much that is wrong with this Cody Ko Tana Mongeau situation. Obviously, most importantly at its core, that a 25-year-old Cody Ko allegedly chose to perpetrate statutory rape against a 17-year-old Tana. We'll come back to those ages in a second. The fact that he has subtly pressured her into staying silent on the subject over the years, leveraging major milestones in his life like his wedding to keep her quiet, and the fact he is now choosing to stay silent in the face of the building criticism, which has taken far too long to escalate to this point. And that is the most horrifying part of this whole situation to me, has been the all too predictable and sadly old school response to Tana coming forward as a victim survivor and somebody who was the victim of an adult when she was legally a child. If you're not familiar with what's going on, Cody Ko, who is a huge YouTuber, has been accused of statutory rape against a 17-year-old Tana Mongeau, which he allegedly perpetrated when he was 25 years old. There was also a witness, Gabby Hanna, another YouTuber, who was there the evening when they were initially just kissing. And when she witnessed this, she pulled Cody aside, made him aware that Tana was underage. And that was the night when the event occurred.
I told a guy, I saw him making out with a girl at a party who was underage, and I pulled him aside and I was like, hey man, you probably don't know, I know she like looks a little older, she's underage, watch it. And he was like, oh my God, thank you for telling me. And then he turned that.
And Gabby has been telling this story for many years. It lines up with the story that Tana has been telling for many years. And once you have a witness to something like this and you have a victim who consistently tells the same story, it's not looking great. When you have an alleged perpetrator who then has chosen to stay silent entirely on the matter, extra layer of not good. But despite that, despite all of this compelling evidence and the consistent telling of this story from the survivor herself, she has faced an absolute landslide of vitriol, victim blaming, totally undermining her character and therefore her story and her experience. It goes beyond what were you wearing. But I think the most egregious thing that I've seen coming out of this, which I haven't seen people really talking about, is the convenient infantilization of men versus the vitriol that women receive despite their age when they are in the victim role versus what the perpetrator receives. And what I mean by this is the chief defense of Cody Ko, since all of this really came to the surface, has been his age. That at 25, he couldn't have known better. At 25, he made an ill-informed, stupid, immature, impulsive, whatever sort of youthful characteristics you want to give to the explanation. This is the chief defense people are still running with. There are so many issues with that on its own. The fact that at 25, Cody Ko was a fully grown adult. He was classified as an adult in the most important way, which is that his brain at 25 was fully developed. The most important part of that development that we see happening at 25 is that impulse control fully develops. Our ability to rationalize, to reason, to see how our actions can lead to negative or positive consequences. He had the absolute capacity and capability of doing that, and yet still allegedly chose to conduct himself criminally against a minor. And he had the witness testimony of Gabby Hanna and what she shared with him as well. So he went into this decision fully informed and with the full capacity to see the outcomes and the consequences of his choices. Now, is Tana, who, mind you, has never been accused of statutory rape, has she been given the same grace and benefit as the victim? Of course she hasn't. Of course she hasn't. It's 2024, and in this department, absolutely nothing has changed. In fact, Tana's choices as a teenager are now being used against her. People are providing examples like, well, she lied in story times. She lied on social media. She would fabricate stories, either partially or fully, for YouTube videos. She would tell these story times and she would make up details, or she'd make up stories entirely. TanaCon is something that people are pointing to, which she organized when she was 19 years of age. All of the conduct that is being used to undermine her veracity as a victim survivor is all conduct that she engaged in when she was a teenager and a young adult, no older than a young adult. And that apparently entirely discredits her as a victim. That completely discredits her experience and her testimony about her own experience, even though it's behavior very fitting of someone who is in their teen years or a young adult, and again, isn't criminal behavior. So Tanner is not entitled to the too young excuse as a teenager for behavior which isn't criminal, which Cody is entitled to as a 25-year-old grown adult man for allegedly criminal behavior. What does that tell us about the mechanism of that excuse? It's that any excuse will do. Any excuse will do to excuse the criminal behavior of a man, especially when it's perpetrated against a woman. Any excuse will do to invalidate and undermine the testimony of a woman who is coming forward as a victim and survivor. We see this even in the mental health realm. How many times have we seen a man's criminal conduct, particularly that which is perpetrated against women? How many times do we see mental health being used as a reason or an excuse? How many times do we see in headlines that men who perpetrate domestic violence or sexual violence had a diagnosis, or even if they didn't have a diagnosis or even a suggestion of a diagnosis, they are then given an armchair diagnosis? That the media and we as a society will do whatever we can to stitch together an explanation which decenters the idea that this happened because a man chose for it to happen. There has to be layers of excuses to make everybody comfortable. Now, when a victim survivor comes forward, a woman comes forward to say that she has been a victim, should she have any history of mental health concerns, diagnosed or undiagnosed, that will be used against her. She suddenly becomes unreliable. She becomes someone who is questionable morally. Her testimony is questionable. And if it's not that, it's usually something else. But when we look at these comparisons, whether it's age or it's mental health, the way that it is used to excuse or to vilify comes down to one determining factor, and that is which gender it's being applied to. Free pass. Just whichever one works for the situation. And in this one, we see this direct discrepancy amongst perpetrator and victim. And where age is an excuse for one, it is a tool to weaponize against someone who is coming forward with their testimony and their experience. We've learned nothing, it appears sometimes. A huge part of why this has taken so long to surface is because Cody Ko belongs to the commentary community on YouTube, which is predominantly male. The most successful and loudest voices in that community are male. And it has only surfaced because one man amongst them, D'Angelo Wallace, who actually has some integrity and some scruples, put out a video calling his fellow commentary community creators into question, especially those who are male, to say, why aren't you speaking about this? Even now, when those creators have bowed to that pressure and have put out videos, it will always come with this caveat of how unlikable Tanner is. It will come with her past indiscretions. Again, not criminal. Things that many young people do: fabricate, elaborate, make silly impulsive decisions, make really big bad impulsive decisions, aka TannerCon. They have to give this litany of her past behavior and how unlikable she is and say, but even despite that, we really should be listening. We really should be drawing, attention to this issue. We don't have to go through all of Cody's behavior, apparently. The fact that he has been harboring, sheltering, enabling, platforming somebody who was involved in incredibly serious misconduct at Duke. Headlines here, links below. Too sickening to go into on top of everything else we're talking about in this video. We don't have to go through all of that to justify why we're talking about this. Another obvious disparity where her past is relevant and his is irrelevant when only one of these people has been accused of criminal behavior. These are the things that we are not tolerating anymore. These are the things we are not turning a blind eye to anymore. I think too many of us know what this is like. I have experienced sexual violence in the last few years, and I had my mental health used against me because it was convenient. It was a convenient excuse to make what happened okay. No one was denying what happened, just like at this point, no one's really denying what happened to Tanner. There was a witness. It is impossible to deny. So then we move to justification. Then we move to why it's okay. And it's never okay, ever. We are not tolerating this anymore.